Today we're going to review the National Council for Civic Education Development on their successes and challenges in the year 2022 and plans ahead for 2023. In the studio we have Ibrahim Kalilu Totangi, Chairman, National Council for Civic Education Development. We also have Alfonso Bani, Executive Secretary of Human Rights Defenders Network, Sierra Leone. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning in the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
And compliments of the season.
So you too. Oh, that's lovely.
We'll start with you, Chairman. In assessing your institution now to your employers, the citizens of the country, what's the feedback? What's the report? What have you done in the year 2022?
Well, thank you again. I think 2022 has been a great year for our institution. Remember, we only started in 2018, and our mandate was clear. We were going to develop the curriculum, do syllabus, print books, and teach civic teachers so that we can reintroduce civic education to schools. We spent the better part of the first year trying to put institution together, because the institution just started with me alone. We had to recruit other people to work with us, and so we have effectively been working in the last 2 years to do much of what we set out to do. But in the last year specifically, we have been able to get the books, the textbook. Remember, we produced 7 textbooks for Class 1 to GSS 3. We have been able to get this into schools. Now, civics is a subject, a standalone subject of teaching and learning in all of the government schools and government-assisted schools in this country, effective September of 2022, which is a good thing. And with the support of our friends, and especially the Ministry of Education, our colleagues at the TSC, and with support from the Free Education Project Secretariat that is funded by the World Bank, the Irish Aid, and others, we got some resources. We have been able in 2022 to train 2,500 teachers in civic education, and these ones are now going to cascade the training to others. So it's been a good year for us, and there are prospects looking up because of the successes that we have scored. In the same year, we had some support from the UNDP and to do what we call out-of-school civic education. We took 2 districts which we have done pilot civic education training in this engagement in these 2 districts, Kenema and Tonkolele district. And so now the government itself has seen that the out-of-school civic education is a very important thing, especially coming on the back of August 10. Now, State House is supporting us. We are going to roll out a program of civic education out of school, piloting in the western area. We are working with MOYA, Ministry of Youth and Affairs, NACOM, National Youth Commission, and NACSA, and others, so that we can pilot in 200 communities in here in the western rural and western urban, something we call civic education, civic mobilization, peace building, and things of that nature, and on service delivery. So I think it's been challenging, but we have scored some successes that we are proud of, and we are looking forward to the next year, because we now see that we have done the element that is supposed to be in the schools. That one has a foothold in the schools. Only what we're going to continue to do is to continue to train more teachers and monitor the progress in those areas. But we are very elated that we are going to take civic education on into the communities, starting with the communities in Freetown.
With obviously the expectation is that at the beginning of every year, or probably the end of a year, you come up with a plan for the year ahead or that new year. So it's expected that you had a plan for the institution. What was the plan? And in that plan, what were you able to do, and what's left undone?
Well, you know, all of these plans that we make, considering who we are, a quasi-government agency, would depend on funding. We had actually set out very robust things. For instance, we were able to acquire solar-powered televisions for all 190 chiefdoms in the country. And those ones we have delayed in concluding that arrangement, although the things we have procured, efforts have been made to install them in these communities, but still we are yet to pay the vendors the third tranche of what we owe them. which would have been the conclusion of that. We also have set out to develop content for those TV, because you don't just go give people TV in those communities to watch football. We actually have national development messages, whether in health, whether in agriculture, whether in even the normal day of peaceful coexistence. We need to send them materials to those communities. Unfortunately, much as the Ministry of Finance was able to pay for the installation, we need to produce content. So that means NCCED needed some money to produce those contents, to hire professionals to help us produce those contents, and to be able to transmit those contents to those communities. Unfortunately, we lapsed in that area a lot. And also, like I said, we need boots on the ground. We only have one person in each of the regions. That's woefully inadequate, and so we needed to employ more people. Unfortunately, we are not able to do that. So those are challenges that we are still grappling with. We hope that with the milestones that we have set, people will now begin to see that this is a very serious thing. There's a need for it in this community. So I hope the government will now put the money where the mouth is. And we also hope that other well-wishers for this country can see the intricate and important role that civic education will play in these communities. Because you can build a skyscraper, and somebody can bring lies, and that skyscraper can be brought down in a moment. People now live to regret it. But if people understand, if you bring people along, let them understand, why am I building this edifice here? And so they say, okay, this is a very good edifice. Let us come and volunteer and help to build this edifice. If people really are part of what government does daily, there is no way they are going to allow anybody to break it down just easily. So yes, we discuss some successes, but challenges abound all of the time because of the lack of resources, whether it's human, whether it's material. Can you imagine we only have one vehicle to do our work around the country, and we have one person each in the region? That's a huge challenge.
In fact, that's what I wanted to ask. Speaking on the council's pillars, one of the pillars is promoting civic education and national consciousness throughout the year 2022. From your institution, has there been any data or any finding or report showing how conscious Sierra Leoneans have been? You referenced just now the August 10th incident that happened. These are youth who came out to the streets. Is the consciousness only lying with citizens, or are you taking the consciousness as well to leaders?
Yes, we are taking the consciousness to leaders. Remember now, we have an element within our group that is called the Open Government Partnership, which allows us to deal with service providers and political leaders. In this same 2022, we were able to bring together heads of MDAs in a conference where we were looking at their approach, their consciousness in terms of what they're actually supposed to be doing for communities and how they can work together to deliver services for communities. So we were able to pick their brains on a number of things. For that, we have conscious data on that. No, we don't have that yet, but we're able to remind them of their duty based on their own mandates in their own communities. And they also were able to speak to us forthrightly about some of the challenges that they all face. And we were able to put together a report for the higher ups to see how they can do to improve service delivery and also their engagement. There are challenges abound everywhere. For instance, because of the global crisis, we have problems with fear. Yes, government is making effort, but tell the people, what efforts are we making as a government? What are our challenges so that people can be a part of that governance process? Unfortunately, some members or some people who have responsibility for this have been slow in doing that. Although we see that the efforts, but we don't have to speak for government. Government has to speak for itself. All we do is to create a platform for government to speak to the people so that they can understand what government is doing, what are the challenges that government is facing, so that they can understand for themselves what the things are. Are we doing very well in that area? Not exactly, but these are some of the things that we hope to look at
Right.
in 2023.
Let me bring Alphonse Osbani in. What will be your assessment of the council in 2022, specifically with regards civic support and democratic governance, and also them responding to national issues and incidences?
Thank you. I think if I want to look at the council's operation, we look at it maybe from one of our legend musician, Bob Marley. Bob Marley has two songs that I like using, and it fits into the work of the council. One that speaks about, it said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. The other song relates to the issue of it takes a revolution to make a solution. And let me put it into context. Civic education, unless we understand the issues, we are part of the issues, we change from the inside and go outside, there is no way Sierra Leone will be more a better place than we are now. And creating that space for people to feel belonging, to see themselves as nationals, as patriotic citizens, as people that put the country first, looking at the national pledge. I pledge my love and loyalty to my country, Sierra Leone. Taking that into context goes a long way to transform the narratives of this country. And so once people emancipate themselves, because you have to change yourself. So what they are doing, they are aiding the process for us to move away from mental slavery, from that archaic concept of fixed ideological thoughts that some people usually say, in fact, me na born APC, me na born SLPP. There is no party in this country that is called APC, SLPP, NGC, or whatever. We have villages, we have towns. And so it is that approach they are taking to change that mentality, to change that perception. So we need now to say, I am a born Sierra Leonean. That is the thing I think we are picking up from what they are doing that we can also assess. The other leg, the other issue is this aspect of Bob Marley's song suggesting that it takes a revolution to make a solution. And if you call, most of you can recall, before the war, most of us in this country have been crying, until there is bloodshed in this country will never change. And we had the war. But let us ask ourselves the question, was there a change? Did the revolution brought changes? No, because the revolution that we are craving for was an armed revolution. The revolution we need now is a mental revolution, changing the perception, the mindset of individuals. So until we take a mental revolution from our thought, from our own idea, removing ourselves from the archaic thought, from those perceptions that we have, looking at you, I hate you, if you put on red, you should be my enemy, you put on green, you are my enemy. When we change that thought, we now have what we refer to as a mental revolution. And that is the pace, and that's the thing the council is trying to set, bringing back civic education. And that was why for us as a network, when they instituted this issue of civic education in schools, we are in full support of that initiative, because it helps you as a citizen to identify yourself as a national, not as an individual or as a tribe.
As you say that, let's quickly come back to the chairman. Civic education, obviously there are categories. You spoke about the syllabus now for kids in schools, but there is also a population of out-of-school adults, some who are literates and some who are illiterates. And especially when you look at in terms of violence, it comes to the youths. We've seen instances where in Tumbu, the youths go on the rampage, they're burning down a police station, burning down a hospital. How do you cater to the multiple audiences with the civic education message?
Great question. And that's about what we are pivoting to right now. because about 2 weeks ago we worked with the Sierra Leone reggae movement, and we held a concert at the Casablanca field, and where we brought in comedians, where we brought in the Sierra Leone SLYDC, who are advocates against drug abuse and all of that. And some of your own people here even covered that program. What we wanted to do was to test launch what we call edutainment. This is a moment we use to bring local artists, comedians, so that they can be a conduit to drive people to this community. So when they do a little bit of performance, we use some intervals in between there so that we can bring our civic messages. And I told you about the support we received from UNDP to do a pilot of what we call youth at risk approaches. And what we learned from that, their interest was democratization and things of that nature, peaceful coexistence and all of that. We have now upgraded that syllabus, out of school civic syllabus, to include sessions where we'll bring government people in communities. Say you are the man, the Sawako guy in my 91, for instance, and there are issues of water shortage and all of that. But you have not taken any time to talk to those community people. And as a result of that, people are angry. They are upset about what is going on. So what we do is to create a session, a dialogue session, we will call it, where we bring young people, other community members, and the Salwako people for us to have dialogue. Why is it that the people of Makini are not getting, or Manetwa are not getting clean water, drink potable water, for instance? So that way we will get to have a piece of understanding of one another. So we are going to scale that up in the new year. Especially what we want to achieve is for they used to call them duty bearers. Those people in community, the policemen, the chiefs, so that the people in the communities can understand exactly what is going on, and so that, because if you don't give them information, they manufacture their own rumors. And when they manufacture those rumors, they develop legs and they become the facts. So nobody listens to anything other than what they have built. Where did you get this one? I got it from social media and all of that. We want to have a situation wherein people who are responsible for ABCD actually see it as a responsibility on them to talk to the community members, so that community members can understand what is going on. Otherwise, if we leave that vacuum, that's why the Adebayos come in with their own brand of message. And if those brand of message take foot and take hold in those communities, it may result to things like what we saw on August 10. So yes, this is a challenge, and that's why we're even looking forward to government to take this thing seriously. I'm sure the president has something in mind when he created this institution, but no institution like this runs on air. We have to have the material resources to do the things that we need to do. We need to have people that know what they are doing, so that they can go out there and reach out to the communities. But that is not happening, unfortunately, at the moment.
And having people who know what they're doing, going out to the community. Before we had your segment, we were discussing disability issues in the country, and a lot of information was revealed, how persons with disability are left out. With your messages, how deliberate are you in ensuring that persons with disability as well get to benefit from the information you are sharing to the public, especially considering the different types of disabilities available? Yeah,
that's a very interesting one as well. You know, when we did the textbooks, there's a whole chapter on disability issues for young people to understand that sitting close to disabled person does not make you disabled yourself at that level. And what we did is, remember now, Parliament just passed the National Council for Civic Education and Democracy Act about 2 weeks ago, and we proposed a board, and on that board we have a seat for the disability community, which is important because only they can articulate their own issues as best as they can. He who feels it knows it, if I can quote from another Bob Marley line. Yeah. So we actually believe that they have a place on the table when it comes to civic education. Yesterday I had a privilege of hosting Mustafa by Attila and his wife. They came to visit me in the office, and we spoke about the issues, and before him a group from the blind community had come to see us. We spoke to them about the books that we are publishing, and they said to us, we need this in Braille. We need blind people to be to read the civic education book as you have produced for the others. But again, our limitation is quite glaring. We promise that we can do that, but that is something that we actually need to do.
And the disparity as well in catering to the needs of persons with disability. Now, Braille comes in handy for people who are visually impaired. Mm-hmm. What about those with, hearing impairities, sign language interpretation?
Yeah.
How is that factored into the plan?
Unfortunately, we don't have a clear thinking around that yet, but that's something that is very important. It's very, very, very important. That's something we are very willing to look into, and we hope that when the board could have been set up, when the president could have had his accent on the bill, we hope that we will have more resources in terms of human beings, even who will now pay attention to these particularities that you are supposed to. But these are all important, because if you don't do that, you are leaving out a segment of the population. And one of the pillars that we have in our work is coexistence, peaceful coexistence. Leaving them out will not be the right thing to do. That's something we are very willing to consider going forward.
All right, Alfonso, now let me provoke your thoughts. How long are we going to need civic education for?
What?
How long are we going to need civic education for?
How long? You don't need to ask. Civic education should be part of your own daily life. This is just part of, because you see, the essence of civic education, I will take you out of this continent. If you look at the current situation between Palestine and Israel, there is nothing about civic education. There is what we refer to as a traditional, anger or scenario that has been put in the minds of even unborn babies or young people, so that as you grow, you see an Israeli, if you are a Palestinian, as your enemy. And you are an Israeli, you see a Palestinian as your enemy. You are a Palestinian, you see an Israeli as an enemy. So, generations as they go, the crisis keep continuing. So when you have civic education and it becomes part of you, as you grow up, it changes your mentality. And we don't have that kind of situation like the Palestine and Israel situation in Sierra Leone. But what we have here is the APC SFPP syndrome. And so we don't have that civic education. And I will give you a practical example. We have some people in the APC and the SFPP, even in schools, when their children are placed in schools that have red, that person is SFPP, don't put my child in that. I don't want him or her to be in that red color. It's the same thing with the APC. When they place one of their child in green color house, I don't want my child to be in green. But how are we taking color and politics into schools? Color came in before even our political parties. They existed.
How do we cleanse that fanaticism?
Well, that is the essence of civic education. Because civic education, the more you discuss it, people become part of the process. They grow with that mentality. They grow with that idea. They grow with that passion that we are all Sierra Leonean. When you put on red, I put on green. I don't see the green, the red you put on. I see you as a national and as a person in this country. When I put on green, you don't see the red in me. You see me as a person and as a Sierra Leonean. And so what we need to discuss is how do we transform this country? So I will not look at your color. What I will bring in is what people will understand, that you as a person, you as an individual, what you are doing does not translate the lives of the people. So I don't portray your color, I don't portray your tribe as a negative thing or as an enemy to my own group or to the country, but I portray your conduct, your initiatives, your transformation plan, the plan that you are bringing, that they are not too positive. And when bringing that, I have to present alternatives. So I should not only be condemning, but bringing alternatives. Mm-hmm. And that's the essence of civic education.
Quickly, Kalilu, before you come in, can those messages be cascaded down to the ordinary man when the chairman of the council himself is being appointed by the president?
Of course. Listen, that's the mentality. When they appoint, the president, that's the constitutional provision. The president appoints. That's a statutory provision. That doesn't necessarily mean because the president appoints you I should not listen to this man is at the SLBP. No. And so we have to change that mindset. And that's the essence of civic education. That employment, people should understand that if they employ you, if you as a commission, the president has to, so that least man to the village needs to know that it is the president that appoints that person. So if we are presenting wrong messages to those people, giving them the wrong information because of political identity or political ideology, they grew up to hate this gentleman. In fact, not only hating him, but even refusing to understand the message he may be presenting to them.
That comes with trust issues, Alfonso, yes. Where perhaps the delivery of certain individuals in certain offices has been seen to be interpreted as pro-president, not even pro-government, pro-president. And in instances where what perhaps would benefit the president does not benefit the general public, you find some individuals doing what's in the interest of the president as opposed to the interest of the public. So that brings about trust issues in the minds of people, thinking that once you're appointed by the president, you're not going to work in the interest of the people, it's going to be in the interest of the president.
You are right, but that's also because I heard you asking the chair, how will they also take this message to the leadership?
Yes.
That brings us to that discussion, because, everybody has different characters. And that doesn't necessarily mean if the president appoints you, you are going there to serve the president. The president is the head of this government. But because the president cannot be the chair of his commission, the president cannot be the chief justice, the president cannot be the minister of justice and attorney general, the president cannot be minister of agriculture. So he appoints, so he delegates that responsibility. So you as an individual, it's your own responsibility now to translate the president's vision for this country, using your own professional ethics and professional competence in the area you find yourself, to make sure that what you do will transform the lives of the people. That is the essence of president appointing you. You are not transforming the image, the identity of the president. You are there to transform the lives of the people you are serving. It's not the president. So it sometimes becomes a problem for some people, and even some people, like I keep saying some time ago, that the president said, this slogan, the new direction. But some of his cabinet ministers or whatever, the way they interpret the new direction is completely different from the president's own new direction. So he also needs to bring them on board so that we all understand this new direction.
Let's bring in Kalilu on that.
Interestingly, fortunately, I have not seen any of that in the work that I do. Yeah. Even testimony is when my bill went to Parliament, across the board, across the aisle, parliamentarians of all shades, it took like 2 days, they passed it because they believed in what I'm doing and they know the person I am. What I say to every Sierra Leonean is, we are all Sierra Leoneans. When the president gives you a broom to sweep, sweep as best as you can, because that will make you the waiter at the table the next time. And what is important, we all as citizens, we have our own responsibility. Now, if you have a job to do, give it your best and work in the best interest of the country. So that's what we are doing at NCCED. Let me also say something that my friend Mr. Bani was speaking to. The ultimate aim of what we're doing in civic education is something that is called civic disposition. That is a place where you are, based on the knowledge that you have, based on the aptitudes, the skills that you have built. That's a place where you arrive at, where you have an open mind. You are willing to have a debate. You have a critical thinking skills to have a debate with someone else. You are tolerant enough to listen to someone else's point of view. You are civil enough to wait for the man to land before you start up. So that's where we want to go ultimately. But where do we start? We start with knowledge and understanding. If you don't know what's going on.
As you deliver that, sorry to interrupt you, you'll still land on that. As a way to continue, this is December already, it's just a few days left to the end of the year. The first and second quarter of the next year, you have a lot of work cut out for you as we're heading to the elections period. What's the plan for your institution in the year 2023, especially that elections are just around the corner and there's a lot on your table for that?
There is a lot. We have recognized that from the outset. You now see that even during the voter registration, where the institutions that were able to to bring all 4 of the political party leaders in parliament to speak with one voice. We gave them one sentence as a way of galvanizing people to register. We gave them one sentence, and each one of them had a phrase of the sentence. They all complied, and we had that. We were able to send out 400,000 text messages to remind people of their responsibility to register. And so what we have done, we have a foolproof plan to go towards the election. We are going to be working round the clock all around this country to ensure that we forestall violence. We want to encourage participation. We want to talk to our political leaders to minimize hate speech, because they are the ones who actually ginger people up to do some of the things. So right now we have a message out. We have 20 radio stations. We have a message out. It's a 2-minute public service announcement that we have that actually encourage all Sierra Leoneans to put on their best behavior or to put their best foot forward as we go towards the election. Elections are not supposed to be a do or die battle. The interests of this nation, the interests of our children should be placed first and foremost in anything that we do. So we know our work, and we had approached the people who have the pulse to support us, because last time when we engaged in the civic, the voter registration exercise, nobody gave us a dime. We took it from our own meager resources because we knew it was important. Fortunately, we have some skilled people who were able to do some of the things that we are doing. But actually, what we need this time is to have boots on the ground. We want to fly a drone, for instance, to monitor elections. Well, we have skills for that. We have drones to do that, but we need to move people to those communities so that we can do these things in a more effective way. Our appeal is going to be, the challenge that we have is resources, both human and material. If we have those, you can see that our presence will be felt everywhere in this country.
Kalilu, now closing, you are highlighting how involved the council is going to be going into next year, especially when we're planning for the elections. Quickly, what are some of the activities lined up in terms of preaching consciousness, in terms of raising awareness or civic responsibility, in terms of voting, or to preach against violence, or to call on people to vote?
We have a myriad of media engagements that we have lined up. We have Federation Link, which is a group of community radio stations that we work with. We want to re-energize and reinvigorate that relationship with them within the next month or so. We also have production elements, like I said to Phoebe a short while ago. We want to produce not only jingles, public service message. People want to hear the voice of their leaders, their community leaders, the politicians. We want them to commit themselves to peace and tranquility. We want them to commit themselves to tolerance and civility. So we are going to get them to say something to their people, and we are going to take it to them. We are going to do a lot of community engagement. We have talked about the entertainment that we do, what we call is a musical concert, but we use that to pass on messages of tolerance, messages of peace, and to also do voter education and electoral education as well. Let people understand why they are going out to vote. Why are they not going to their farms that day? They are going to spend the whole day in town trying to vote. Let them have value for their votes. So there are a number of things that we're going to do. And we also have what my colleagues at NCCED call media on the wheel. You know, so we're going to do a lot of that. We are going to go to where people gather, to the marketplaces. We're going to do drama in those communities as well, so that we can find whichever way we can get a message to the people. We are going to try doing that.
Will the council also be involved in educating ordinary citizens on the PR system?
We are here to get a full grasp of where this is going. You know, there are both sides to this at the moment. The moment that argument is laid to rest, and they now decide that we're going to do PR, and that's when we come in and say, okay, this is the PR that government has decided on, Parliament has decided on for us to work with, and these are what it entails. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're doing. But as it is now, there are two sides to that argument, and we are not part of it.
All right, Alfonso, as we close, do you see the council achieving all of its objectives and aims going into the next calendar year?
Yeah, we believe they are gradually achieving, because the issue of civic education is not a one-time or one-off activity or project. This is It's a thing that you deal with people's mind and people's perception, people's, mindset. And so it takes time for you to see, even to get a feel of the impact. And the impact, we will judge the council's impact as to how we conduct and behave ourselves. That's the time you start to realize the impact of the work of the council. And so we need to give our support to the council, all of us as a nation. And that's going to be my parting word. If we give our support to the council, and we give it in two ways, from the I to the we. The I will focus on the national pledge, which is individual oath. I, either myself, you as an individual, or as an institution. That is the I. The we as a collective community, as a community of civilized people. We, how we exalt thee. How do we put this country first? Other than my personal self, my political party, my tribe, my color, or whatsoever. If we move towards that end, Sierra Leone is a paradise.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for being a part of the program this morning. Your time is appreciated.